By the time the cameras shut off and the guests scattered, Joel Madron still hadn't taken off his ring. Outside, rainwater carried rose petals down the steps like quiet evidence. Success had finally come to collect its price, and what he had witnessed that afternoon still had him shaken up.
Hello, if you're ready to hear the whole story, click subscribe and tap the notification bell. Type in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow, I will be giving you another story just as touching as this one, or maybe even crazier. And you don't want to miss it. Now let's begin.
8 hours earlier, the glass walls of the lakeside pavilion reflected a version of Joel he almost recognized. Tailored, polished, emotionless. Assistants moved like quiet ghosts around him, checking microphones, polishing silver, murmuring about drone angles. He nodded at them, hearing none of it. The faint hum of rain against the roof sounded steadier than his breathing. Tessa Wynne appeared in the doorway, barefoot, hairpinned, champagne flute in hand. "You're already dressed." He managed to smile. "Control the variables. Control the chaos." She laughed softly. "That's not how marriage works." He wanted to believe her. When she left, he looked at his reflection again. His tux fit perfectly, yet he looked miscast, like someone performing a life instead of living it. Across town. Rhea Coulter dipped her brush into pale blue and swept it across a canvas that refused to behave. The community arts center smelled of turpentine and chalk. Children's drawings covered one wall. Sunlight, stick figures, a crooked dog labeled Dad. Her twins, Nola and Bram, were finishing paper crowns. "Why's your sky always gray?" Nola asked. Rhea smiled faintly. "Because it's honest." The radio on the shelf buzzed with a wedding segment. Joel Madron and tennis champion Tessa Wynne broadcasting live from Eureka Springs. Rhea froze mid-stroke. The anchor mentioned Joel's charitable tech initiative, his perfect love story. The twins laughed at something unrelated, and she turned off the radio. She hadn't seen Joel in 6 years. She'd never meant to again. But truth had a way of waiting for invitation. Back at the pavilion, Joel rehearsed his vows under his breath. They sounded right, but felt hollow. The planner asked if he wanted to shorten them for the live broadcast. He almost said yes. His brother Drew slipped in quietly. "You look ready." "I'm supposed to." Drew studied him. "You ever think about calling her?" His jaw tightened. This isn't the day. It never was. Drew left before he could answer. At lunch, Rhea folded the twins' drawings into her bag. Bram asked, "Do we have a dad?" She hesitated. "Everyone starts with one. Do we get to meeting?" She looked out the window, mist rising over the Ozarks. Church bells faint in the distance. "Maybe sooner than you think." The decision wasn't impulsive. It was overdue. She packed light. Sketchbook, raincoat, and 2 pairs of small shoes. That evening, Joel stood on the balcony overlooking Lake Leatherwood. Guests arrived below, flashes already blooming from photographers. Tessa joined him, slipping her hand into his. "You look like you're somewhere else," he said, just taking it in. She smiled, but her eyes searched him. "We're not rehearsing anymore, Joel." Inside, music swelled. He whispered his line again. "Control the variables, control the chaos," and stepped into the hall. Across town, Rhea guided the twins down the hotel stairs. The rain had thickened to a whispering curtain. The girl carried her mother's old sketchbook, the boy a paper crown. They didn't know where they were going, only that she walked without hesitation. At the pavilion entrance, Tessa's father straightened his tie and told reporters, "My daughter always plays to win." Inside, Joel exhaled as the doors began to close, sealing the stage. Somewhere in the city, Rhea lifted an umbrella and began walking towards the same direction, her reflection merging with streetlight puddles. 2 lives, 6 years apart, heading for collision. Neither one ready, neither one willing, but both required by truth.
The rain began as a whisper on the pavilion's roof, soft, hesitant, as if the sky itself were unsure whether to interrupt. Guests turned their faces upward, smiling under umbrellas. The officiant waited for the murmur to fade before beginning. Tessa stood at the end of the aisle, her white dress catching faint reflections from the lake beyond. When she looked at Joel, her smile was calm, but her knuckles blanched against the bouquet. Joel's breath stilled. In the echo of violins and soft rain, everything appeared picture-perfect, until the back doors creaked open. A woman stepped inside. She wasn't dressed for a wedding. A gray coat clung to her shoulders, wet from rain. 2 children stood beside her, one holding her hand, the other clutching a folded drawing. The sound of rain seemed to vanish. Then whispers began. Joel's eyes met hers. It was like being pulled backward through time. Rhea Coulter. Her name didn't pass his lips, but his expression gave it away. The officiant paused, glancing uncertainly between the couple and the guests. Tessa's expression didn't break. Her gaze shifted from Joel to the woman, then to the twins. There was no mistaking it. The boy's jaw, the girl's eyes. The silence stretched until it hurt. Rhea's voice, when it came, was steady. "I'm not here to ruin anything." She turned to the children. "Just to let you see where truth lives." No one moved. Cameras flickered. Joel took a step forward before realizing his hands were shaking. He had imagined 1,000 crises, but not this, never this. "Rhea!" It came out barely above a whisper. She nodded slightly. "You don't have to say anything." The boy tugged her sleeve. "Mom, can we show him?" She hesitated, then gave a small nod. He walked toward Joel, unfolding the paper. It was a drawing, a tall man with dark hair holding 2 smaller figures, all 3 smiling under a crooked yellow sun. Above it, in a child's handwriting, "Dad." Joel's throat closed. He crouched instinctively, taking the paper without realizing it. His vision blurred, the ink bleeding slightly from his wet fingers. Tessa didn't move. Her voice, when it came, was the only sound that felt human in that suspended air. "Finish the ceremony." The officiant froze. "Miss Wynne, perhaps we should—" "Finish it," she repeated. Her eyes never left Joel. The ceremony resumed, haltingly, every word vibrating in the space between illusion and revelation. Joel spoke his vows with the voice of a man both exposed and stripped clean. Tessa repeated hers without tremor, but her gaze was unflinching. When the rings were exchanged, Rhea quietly led her children back toward the open doors. She didn't look back. The sound of rain swelled again as the doors shut behind her. The guests exhaled as one. The officiant concluded the service. "By the power vested in me," Joel kissed Tessa gently. Her lips were cold. The applause that followed was awkward, scattered, more duty than joy. When the music started, Tessa whispered near his ear, "We'll talk tonight." After the ceremony, as guests dispersed toward the reception hall, Joel lingered under the awning. The rain poured harder now, pooling along the cobblestone path. The paper drawing remained in his pocket, edges damp and curling. From across the courtyard, he saw Rhea and the twins waiting beneath a narrow archway, half hidden from sight. She wasn't crying. Her calm felt like judgment and mercy at once. He took a step toward her, then stopped when Tessa appeared beside him. "Not now," she said quietly. "You'll only make it worse." "I owe her something." "You owe me honesty," Tessa replied. "Start there." He couldn't meet her eyes. She walked away, shoulders straight, her dress gathering rain like it belonged to the storm. That night, the reception carried on, music, laughter, wine, that Joel barely existed inside it. He toasted, he smiled, he posed. Every gesture felt like an imitation. Rhea was gone by then, but the air still carried her echo. And though Tessa danced gracefully, her hand light in his, Joel could feel the weight of the drawing pressing against his chest, reminding him of everything success had cost and everything truth had yet to demand. The morning after the wedding, the rain had stopped,
But the air hadn't cleared. The sky hung heavy over Eureka Springs, as though the town itself had absorbed the tension. Joel stood by the window of the honeymoon suite, jacket draped over a chair, watching mist drift across the lake. The drawing still lay folded on the table beside untouched champagne. He hadn't slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the twins' faces, the boy's uncertain courage, Ria's composure. He had expected confrontation, not grace. Tessa stirred behind him. "You're up early." "I never went to sleep." She sat up slowly, pulling the sheet closer. "Then say it, Joel. Whatever you're holding in." He turned, meeting her gaze. "I didn't know about them." "I believe that," she said evenly. "But you knew about her." "Yes." "Then this isn't about surprise. It's about timing and cowardice." Her voice didn't rise, but it didn't need to. The truth was clean, surgical. Joe across the room sat at the edge of the bed. "If I told you I was young, stupid, broke, you'd still be describing the man I chose to marry," she interrupted. "I didn't fall for the company or the title. I fell for the man who said he was done running." He looked down at his hands. "Maybe I lied to both of us." Tessa stood, wrapping herself in a robe. "You didn't lie. You just didn't finish the story." Down the street, Ria sat in a diner booth, the twins sharing a plate of pancakes. The waitress recognized her from the night before and offered a soft, knowing smile. Ria nodded, grateful for the silence. Her phone buzzed, an unknown number. She didn't answer. She had already said everything that mattered without words. Bram looked up from his plate. "Mom, are we in trouble?" She brushed his hair back gently. "No, baby. Grown-ups just get lost sometimes." "Is he our dad?" Nola asked. Ria paused. "He's part of you," she said. "That's enough." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. At noon, Joel found himself standing in front of her studio. He didn't remember deciding to go there. His body simply arrived there. The door was locked. Through the window, he saw unfinished canvases, a scattering of brushes, the ghosts of her life. Tessa's car pulled up beside him. She didn't get out immediately. When she finally did, her movements were calm, deliberate. "You came to see her?" "I don't know," he said honestly. "That's a problem, Joel. You should know." He turned toward her. "Tessa, I didn't invite any of this. Life doesn't wait for invitations." Her tone wasn't cruel, just weary. "I married you knowing there were chapters I'd never read, but I didn't expect them to show up with names and faces." He said quietly, "You could walk away." "I could," she said, meeting his eyes. "But that's not strength. It's escape. I'm not you." For the first time since the ceremony, he saw something behind her calm. Hurt, yes, but also resolve, the kind that endures instead of reacts. That evening, the town felt eerily hushed. News of the interrupted wedding had spread. Social media blurred fact and rumor until truth became noise. Joel scrolled through it once, then powered off his phone. He poured a glass of whiskey he didn't touch. Tessa joined him on the balcony. "The world thinks we're perfect again. We're not. But they'll believe the photos." "I don't want to live in photos anymore." She looked out over the lake. "Then stop hiding in them." Her words landed softly, but stayed sharp. He asked, "Do you still want to stay married?" "I don't know yet, but I want to understand the man I just married. Start there." For a long time, neither spoke. The wind carried the sound of distant traffic, the creak of trees, the low hum of insects. Later that night, Joel sat alone, the drawing spread flat on the table, edges torn from where his hands had gripped too tight. The faces on the page stared back at him, not accusations, just quiet invitations. He didn't know what he would do next, but for the first time, the silence felt like a beginning, not an escape. If you discovered the person you loved had hidden a truth this deep, not out of malice, but fear, would you forgive them, or would you leave before love had the chance to repair itself? Tell me in the comments what you think real forgiveness should cost.
By dusk, the storm had worsened. Wind tore through the hills, scattering leaves and snapping power lines. The town's only road out had flooded, leaving wedding guests and locals alike stranded. The luxury cars parked along the pavilion drive glistened beneath sheets of rain, engines useless. Joel stood under the awning with his tie loose and collar unbuttoned. He had made the mistake of thinking he could leave quietly. The hotel staff apologized for the outage as candles flickered through the lobby. The glow made everything look older, softer, almost holy. Guests murmured about travel plans, about weather apps that wouldn't load. Tessa sat in a corner of the lounge, her phone dim against her palm, scrolling out of habit more than interest. The headline flashed, "Billionaire CEO's wedding erupts in scandal." She locked the screen and placed the device face down. When Joel approached, she didn't look up. "They're saying everything," he said. "They always do. But only we know what's real." He hesitated. "Do you?" Tessa's gaze lifted. "I know what I saw, and what you didn't say." Her tone wasn't sharp, but it held weight. The kind that bends something internal without breaking it. The hotel bar stayed open. Guests treated it like an island. Glasses clinked, laughter rose too high, too brittle. Joel ordered coffee instead of whiskey, his hand steady, but his breathing uneven. Rhea entered quietly, rain dripping from her coat. The twins were asleep in the car, and she'd come in search of dry towels. When she noticed Joel at the bar, she stopped. Neither spoke at first. The bartender sensed something and drifted away. "You shouldn't be out in this weather," Joel said finally. "I've been through worse," Rhea replied. "Are the kids all right?" "They're fine." He nodded, unsure how to bridge the distance between civility and remorse. Rhea studied him. "You're still trying to fix things by control." "I just don't," she interrupted softly. "Sometimes there's nothing to manage, only to face." The candlelight reflected in her eyes, not pity, just recognition. He had been this way even before success had a name. Later, when the rain grew heavier, the power died completely. The generator hummed for a moment and failed. The world went dark except for candles on each table and the occasional lightning flash painting the windows white. Tessa joined them, her expression unreadable. For the first time that day, all three of them were in the same room, surrounded by the same silence. "I'll have tea," Tessa said to no one in particular, sitting beside Rhea. "Might as well get comfortable." Joel tried to speak, but she raised a hand. Not everything needs a performance. Rhea smiled faintly. "She's right." Joel sat across from them. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen." Rhea's voice was gentle. "You never do, Joel, but it always does." Tessa looked between them. "Did you love her?" "Yes," Joel said without hesitation. Rhea didn't flinch. "He loved what I believed about him." The statement landed cleanly, without bitterness. Tessa nodded, almost thoughtfully. "And you stopped believing?" "I learned he didn't need belief, he needed distance, so I gave him both." For a long time the three sat without speaking. The air was thick with unspoken confessions, the kind that only storms can keep contained. When the lightning subsided, the bartender returned with a lantern. Its light cast long, soft shadows over the trio. Tessa took the cup in front of her and sipped slowly. "Everyone thinks love is a beginning," she said quietly. "But it's really an endurance sport." Rhea smiled. "Says the athlete."
Exactly, Tessa said. You train for the pain. The rest is just headlines. Joel looked at her, not with defense this time, but with something close to humility. I don't deserve either of you, he said. Rhea met his eyes. It's not about deserving, Joel. It's about responsibility. Another silence. Then Tessa whispered, You'll start by meeting your children tomorrow. No cameras, no PR, just truth. He nodded once, understanding there was no negotiation left. Outside, the rain began to lighten, its rhythm steadier now, as if exhaustion had softened the storm. Guests retired to rooms. Laughter faded behind doors. Joel remained in the lounge until only candle wax and shadows were left. Tessa had gone upstairs. Rhea lingered by the exit, her silhouette framed by the last flicker of lightning. He called her name once, softly. She turned. Thank you for not humiliating me, he said. I didn't come to hurt you, she replied. I came to stop pretending it didn't happen. Her tone was neither cruel nor forgiving, simply true. Then she left, her footsteps dissolving into the sound of water outside. By midnight, Joel finally exhaled. For the first time in years, he felt smaller, not diminished, but human. He went upstairs to find Tessa already asleep, one arm stretched toward the empty side of the bed. He lay beside her, not touching, just listening to the fading rain. Outside, the last of the storm ran down the windows in long, quiet lines, like the world washing itself clean without apology.
Morning arrived muted and gray. The storm had passed, leaving the streets soaked and the air heavy with that faint metallic scent that follows lightning. The world looked scrubbed raw, as though something larger than them had decided to start over. Joel stood outside the small cottage where Rhea was staying with the twins. He hadn't slept, hadn't even tried. The paper drawing sat folded in his jacket pocket, already soft from handling, its creases beginning to tear. When Rhea opened the door, she didn't seem surprised to see him. They're still asleep, she said quietly. You shouldn't be here. I know, Joel said, but I have to be. She stepped aside. He entered, glancing around at the simplicity, chipped table, half-finished sketches, cereal boxes, the kind of life that never pretended to be more than it was. He felt out of place, overdressed in truth. You painted again, he said. I never stopped, she replied. It's the one thing that doesn't leave. The silence between them wasn't hostile. It was tired. Years condensed into one room. He asked softly, Why didn't you tell me about them? Rhea didn't look up from the coffee she poured. Because I watched what ambition did to you. You were already gone, Joel, before the money, before the company. I wasn't going to raise children as an afterthought. He nodded slowly. I was scared. That's not an excuse, but it's the truth. I know, she said. You were scared of being small. You thought love would make you ordinary. Her words landed like stones skipping across calm water, gentle, precise, leaving ripples that lasted. He sat, elbows on his knees. You're right, he said. Rhea leaned against the counter. You think fear is a flaw. It's not. It's just untrained honesty. They both fell silent again. Through the open window came the distant sound of church bells, thin, imperfect, alive. Meanwhile, Tessa walked along the damp main street, sunglasses low, coat zipped high. The town was stirring, cafe doors opening, people pretending not to recognize her. She carried a coffee cup she barely drank from. She wasn't running. She was thinking. When she saw Joel's car outside the cottage, she stopped. Her instinct was to turn around, but she didn't. Instead, she crossed the street and waited near the trees, watching through the window. Inside, Rhea placed 2 mugs on the table. Joel's voice carried faintly through the glass, steady but unfamiliar. She couldn't make out the words, only the cadence, the tone of someone confessing without asking for pity. Tessa stood there longer than she meant to. The wind caught her hair. She didn't move it.
For the first time, she realized she wasn't a victim in this story. She was the witness to a man trying, however clumsily, to become honest. Back inside, Joel finally asked, "What do I do now?" Rhea looked at him. "Start by being their father. Quietly. No press, no announcement, just presence." He nodded. "And you?" "I keep my life as it is. I've made peace with how it looks." He hesitated. "Do you hate me?" "No," she said simply. "Hate would mean I still expected something." Her calm unnerved him more than anger ever could. The twins stirred in the next room. Rhea stood and opened the door. "You can meet them, but you don't get to explain everything. Just say hello." He did. Nola looked up from her pillow wide-eyed but unafraid. "You're the man from the picture." "I guess I am," he said. Brahms studied him, serious and silent. Then, quietly, "You forgot us." Joel swallowed. "I didn't know I had you to forget." The boy considered this, then turned away. It was both rejection and mercy. Rhea whispered, "That's enough for today." When Joel stepped back outside, Tessa was waiting near the car. Her expression was unreadable. "Did you get what you came for?" she asked. He exhaled. "I don't know yet." "Then maybe that's the problem," she said. "You think everything's supposed to resolve cleanly. Some truths just sit with you." He looked at her, exhausted. "You watched?" "I needed to see for myself," she admitted. He didn't argue. They stood there in the pale morning light, both stripped of illusion, both painfully awake. "Rhea's stronger than I ever was," Tessa said finally. "Maybe she had to be," Joel replied. Tessa nodded slowly. "So now what?" "I don't know," he said again. "Good," she answered. "Maybe it's time you stopped knowing everything." Later that afternoon, Tessa sat with Rhea on the cottage porch. The twins played in the yard, laughter rising through the quiet. Tessa handed her a folded envelope, a donation for the art center in town. "It's not pity," she said. "Just something I can do right." Rhea accepted it without protest. "Then thank you." For a moment the two women sat side by side in companionable silence. "He's trying," Tessa said. "I know," Rhea said. "That's new for him." Tessa smiled faintly. "It's new for me, too." That evening Joel watched from the car as the sun broke through low clouds, gold light catching the lake's surface. He realized something simple. Redemption wasn't grand, and forgiveness didn't come with ceremony. It arrived in fragments, a child's half-smile, a woman's calm, a storm that finally moved on. He drove back towards town, the folded drawing still on the seat beside him. The road was dry now, but his hand still trembled, not from fear this time, but from the weight of being seen.
A week passed before Joel saw Rhea again. He'd stayed in town, working from the local co-working space, trading boardroom silence for the hum of coffee grinders and the clack of laptop keys. His name had started fading from gossip feeds. The world was already moving on. He liked it that way. Each morning, he'd drive by the lakeside road near the art center. Rhea often walked the twins there, coats zipped, hair windswept, laughter uncontained. He never interrupted. Watching was enough for now. But on the 8th day, Rhea waved him over. No ceremony, no invitation, just acknowledgement. "You can walk with us," she said. "Are you sure?" "I wouldn't have waved otherwise." The trail wound through damp trees and fallen leaves. Nola held her mother's hand while Bram kicked rocks into puddles. Joel walked a few paces behind, unsure whether to speak. Rhea broke the quiet first. "They know who you are now. I told them you're learning how to be their father." "And what did they say?" "They said they'll believe it when they see it." Joel smiled faintly. "That sounds like you." Rhea shrugged. "They get their honesty from me." He nodded. "And their stubbornness from me." "Unfortunate combination," she said, smiling despite herself. That afternoon, the twins helped paint the mural at the town's new youth center. Joel rolled paint on the lower panels, while Nola added stars with a brush too big for her hand. Tessa arrived halfway through, wearing jeans and an oversized hoodie.
Not the tennis star from headlines, but a woman simply existing. Rhea greeted her without hesitation. "Glad you came." "Thought I'd see what this new chapter looks like," Tessa said. She crouched beside Nola, helping her steady the brush. "That's good," she whispered. "Stars don't need to be perfect, just bright." Joel watched from the edge, something unnameable tugging in his chest. This, laughter, paint, ordinary light, was more healing than anything wealth had ever offered him. Later, when the sun dipped low, they sat on the curb outside the center, sharing bottled water and tired smiles. Rhea said quietly, "This doesn't erase the past." "I know," Joel replied, "but it feels like a start." "It is," she said, "for all of us." Tessa leaned back on her hands, eyes fixed on the sky. "You know, I spent years chasing wins because I thought applause meant worth. Turns out, silence feels better." Rhea nodded. "Silence is underrated." Joel looked between them. "You're both stronger than I ever was." Tessa smirked. "We still are, but that's not the point." Rhea laughed softly, the kind of laugh that carried forgiveness without words. That night, Joel cooked dinner for everyone. Nothing extravagant, just pasta, garlic, laughter. The twins helped set the table, each plate slightly off-center. When Tessa poured juice, Rhea turned on the old radio by the sink. A soft song filled the room, slow, timeless, human. Nola climbed onto Joel's lap. "You burned the bread," she said matter-of-factly. He chuckled. "It's called rustic. It's called black." Bram frowned. Even Rhea laughed at that. For a few moments, everything felt like it belonged. Not perfectly, but truthfully. When the twins went to bed, the adults sat outside under string lights that flickered weakly in the breeze. The air smelled of lemon soap and pine. Rhea sipped her tea. "You know what's strange?" she said. "All this started because of ambition, and somehow it's ending in humility." Tessa nodded. "That's life. We build towers, and life keeps handing us hammers." Joel exhaled. "Maybe that's how you learn to build something better." Rhea looked at him, her expression calm. "Do you love her?" she asked, glancing at Tessa. "Yes," Joel said. "And me?" "In a different way," he replied. "You're part of what made me possible." Rhea smiled. Not sad, not wistful. "Then that's enough." As the lights dimmed, Tessa leaned against Joel's shoulder. He didn't speak, didn't overthink. For once, silence held no guilt. It was simply full of memory, of peace, of beginning again. Across the yard, Rhea looked up at the sky, the same one they all shared, indifferent yet constant. She whispered something only she heard. "Let it be enough." Do you think real forgiveness means starting over, or simply learning to live honestly with what remains?
The peace held for nearly 2 months, long enough for Joel to believe that maybe the worst was behind them, long enough for Tessa to smile again without checking for cameras, long enough for Rhea to paint without the ache of what-ifs. Then came the article. It appeared one morning on every business feed and gossip site. Madron's secret family, the children he hid for years. No quotes, no verification, just photos. Joel walking with the twins by the lake, Rhea's cottage in the background, Tessa in the frame beside them. By noon, the phones began to ring. Joel read the article once, then again, each line slicing through the fragile calm he had built. The PR team called first, then shareholders, then finally his assistant, her voice trembling, asking how to respond. He said only, "Say nothing." But silence, this time, sounded too much like guilt. By the time he reached the cottage, news vans had already found the road. Rhea stood on the porch, her posture rigid, her expression unreadable. "You said there'd be no cameras," she said quietly. "I didn't call them," Joel replied. "They came because of you. I'll fix it. You can't fix everything, Joel. That's what got us here." Her voice cracked on the last word, but she didn't step back. Inside, the twins were crying. Tessa was there, packing bags. "What are you doing?" Joel asked. "Leaving," Tessa said. "You should too." "I can't just run." "This isn't running, it's protecting them." Ria's eyes flashed. "Protecting them from what? The truth?" Tessa turned. "From spectacle." The air between them thickened. All the unspoken alliances, all the quiet rivalries crashing into the open. Ria said, "You wanted peace, I gave it to you, and now it's gone because your life always finds an audience." He whispered, "I didn't want this." Tessa looked at him, her tone brittle. "You never do, but somehow it always happens." He stepped outside to clear his head. The reporter shouted his name. Cameras clicked in bursts. One question cut through the noise. "Is it true, Mr. Madron? Are those your children?" He froze, then answered quietly, "Yes." The word broke whatever restraint remained. Ria's door slammed. Tessa's car engine started. The twins' crying echoed through the walls. That evening, the house was empty. Joel sat alone at the kitchen table, the phone buzzing with messages, apologies, threats, statements waiting for approval. He didn't answer any. When the knock came, he almost didn't move. But Ria entered before he could speak. Her face was calm now, too calm. "You shouldn't have confirmed it," she said. "They deserved the truth," he replied. "They deserved privacy. I was trying to do the right thing." Ria exhaled. "The right thing, Joel, isn't always the visible one." Her voice trembled, but she kept her gaze steady. "I spent years rebuilding peace. You just tore it open in a sentence." Joel swallowed. "Then I'll make it right." "No," she said quietly. "You'll make it real, finally." Tessa returned later that night, not to comfort him, to end it. She stood by the door, jacket still wet from rain. "I can't do this again," she said. "I watched you drown once in your own ambition. I thought you'd learn to breathe. But this was you surfacing only to drown differently." He looked at her helplessly. "I thought honesty mattered." "It does, but timing matters more." He stepped closer. "So this is it?" Tessa nodded, for now. She hesitated before leaving. "I still believe you're trying, Joel. I just don't want to be the next thing you try to fix." The door closed softly behind her. Hours passed. The rain started again, thin, unhurried. Joel turned off every light except one in the kitchen. On the table sat a newspaper, its headline bold and unforgiving. He tore it in half, then into quarters, but it didn't bring relief. From the hall he heard the sound of a small voice, Bram, holding a stuffed bear, eyes wide. "Mom's crying," Bram said. "I know, buddy. I made a mistake." Bram's eyes searched his. "Will you fix it?" "I'll try." "Promise?" Joel hesitated, then nodded. "Promise." Bram climbed onto his lap and fell asleep against his chest. The house was quiet again, but the damage lingered. Not loud, just deep. By dawn the storm had passed. Ria had packed bags, ready to take the twins somewhere quieter. She paused at the doorway. Joel stood near the window, face pale from sleeplessness. "Where will you go?" he asked. "Somewhere without microphones," she said. "Will you tell me where?" "No. If you knew, someone else would too." He nodded, accepting. As she reached for the handle, she said, "You can still be in their lives, Joel, just not like this, not yet." He wanted to argue, to beg, but he didn't. Instead, he said softly, "Tell them I love them. They already know." And then she was gone. That night, Joel drove alone through the outskirts of town.
The sky was clear for the first time in days. His reflection in the windshield looked unfamiliar, smaller, older, but finally honest. He whispered to himself, "You can't fix what was never broken, only misunderstood." And for once, he didn't reach for his phone, didn't draft a statement, didn't plan a counter. He just drove, letting silence be the consequence.
Weeks passed, marked by stillness rather than motion. Joel stayed in the lake town, though the press had long since moved on. He spent his mornings running the forest trail behind the hotel, the one that wound through damp cedar and forgotten picnic benches. The cold made him feel human again. His company ran without him, meetings delegated, calls unanswered. For the first time in years, he wasn't building anything. He was simply standing still. In the quiet, he began to notice the things success had taught him to ignore: the scrape of branches on windows, the uneven rhythm of his own breath, and the ache that came with remembering too much. One afternoon, he drove to the youth center. The mural they'd painted months earlier had faded slightly, stars dulled by weather, brushstrokes roughened by time. He ran his hand across the surface, the paint flaking under his touch. Inside, he found Rhea's workroom empty except for canvases leaning against the walls. Portraits of children, sunlight, and one painting that stopped him cold: the cottage porch rendered in soft blues, with 3 silhouettes sitting quietly together. He realized she had painted peace the way she wanted it to be remembered. Not perfect, not permanent, but true. Later that evening, Joel sat at the lake's edge. The water reflected a dim amber sky, unbroken and vast. He thought about the word enough, how he had spent years chasing the opposite of it, measuring worth in applause and ownership and constant movement. He spoke softly to no one. Maybe doing better isn't about having more. Maybe it's about losing gracefully. A heron skimmed the surface, wings steady and deliberate. He watched until it disappeared. The next morning, he called Rhea. She didn't answer. Instead, she texted, "They're safe. We're okay. That's all you need to know for now." He read it twice, then replied, "Thank you." He didn't drive to find her. He didn't ask for more. For the first time, restraint felt like strength. Tessa arrived that afternoon, unannounced. No cameras, no entourage. She looked tired but clear-eyed. She said, "You stayed." He said, "I didn't know where else to go." She said, "Good. Maybe that's how you start again, when nowhere feels like escape." They walked the shoreline together, shoes sinking in the wet sand. Neither spoke for a long time. The silence wasn't hostile, it was clean. Finally, Tessa said, "You're different." Joel smiled faintly. "Different doesn't always mean better." She said, "It does when it's earned." He stopped walking. "I don't want to rebuild what we had before. I just want to be someone who doesn't run from his own reflection." She nodded. "Then don't." They stood there, the lake stretching endless before them. That night they ate dinner in quiet companionship. Joel cooked, carefully this time. The bread wasn't burnt. Tessa asked, "Do you think she'll forgive you?" He thought for a moment and said, "Maybe, but forgiveness isn't the prize. It's the privilege of being seen for who you're trying to be." She considered that and then said softly, "That's the kind of answer people spend years looking for." He smiled. "Took me long enough." Before bed, Joel opened his laptop for the first time in weeks. He drafted a public statement, not defensive, not rehearsed. It was short. "Family isn't about control. It's about presence. I failed more than I've succeeded, but I'm learning that honesty and humility are the only things worth keeping. This isn't an apology for being human. It's a gratitude for the chance to be one." He didn't send it right away. Instead, he read it out loud months, quietly, then closed the laptop. The next morning, Joel mailed the small package, no return address.
Inside were two things: the original drawing the twins had made, and a letter written in his careful, uneven handwriting. "You don't owe me forgiveness. I just wanted to thank you for the parts of me you helped shape. The honest ones, the scared ones, the ones that learned how to stay." He left it at the post office and didn't look back. By dusk, he returned to the lake again. The mural glowed faintly under the evening light, the children's stars barely visible but still there. He realized that was enough. He whispered, "This is how I begin again, by letting it end." The air was cold, but the quiet didn't hurt anymore.
Spring came quietly that year. The storms didn't return, and neither did the noise. The town felt lighter, the air softer, the days longer, as if life itself had exhaled. Joel stayed. He rented a small house on the edge of the lake, close enough to the art center that he could walk there. He didn't run the company anymore. His partners had taken over. He didn't miss it. He'd traded urgency for presence. Each morning he'd make coffee, step outside, and breathe in the scent of pine and damp soil. It was a modest ritual, but it was his. One morning a letter arrived. No name on the envelope, but he knew the handwriting. He opened it carefully. "They're doing well. Bram wants to learn guitar. Nola wants to paint like me, but with brighter colors. You were right about forgiveness. It's not a gift, it's a practice. We're practicing every day. ... Ria." He read it twice, then placed it on the kitchen counter beside a half-finished cup of coffee. The sunlight touched the ink, making it shimmer faintly before fading. He didn't cry. He didn't need to. That afternoon, Tessa stopped by. She just returned from a small charity match in another state. No cameras, no trophies, no noise. She said, "I got your message." Joel replied, "I didn't send one." She smiled. Exactly. They ate on the porch. Sandwiches, lemonade, quiet conversation. Tessa asked, "Do you think you'll ever go back to the company?" Joel shook his head. "No, I think it was always meant to outgrow me." "And us?" she said softly. He looked at her. "I don't want to rebuild what fell apart. I want something that grows differently." Her smile was faint, but real. "Then let's start small." Over the next months, Joel volunteered at the art center, teaching teens about small business, not money, but meaning. He helped Ria organize an exhibit remotely, sending notes and donations under her name. Tessa spent weekends training local kids on the tennis courts. The laughter that echoed through the park had none of the strain of competition, only joy. Sometimes Joel would join her after sessions. They'd walk the length of the court, talking about nothing and everything. One evening, as the sun fell behind the trees, she said, "You're different." He smiled. "So are you." She nodded. "We're learning." He said, "Still practicing." A few weeks later, the art center hosted a spring showcase. Joel helped set up lights and hang canvases. When guests arrived, he stayed near the back, watching. Ria stood near one of her newest paintings, A Lake at Dawn. The brushwork was delicate, alive with motion. Tessa greeted her with genuine warmth. The two women spoke easily now, their connection unforced. When Ria saw Joel across the room, she nodded once. It wasn't invitation or dismissal, just acknowledgement, the kind that said, "We've made peace." After the crowd thinned, she approached him. "She said you're learning to be still." She gave him a small wrapped parcel, a painting. When he opened it later that night, he saw what she had painted. A quiet lake shore under sunrise, with 3 small figures walking apart but in the same direction. That evening,
Joel sat by the water, the painting beside him, the air cool and calm. Tessa joined him, sitting cross-legged on the dock. She said, "You're learning to be still." He said, "I am. Stillness used to feel like failure. Now it feels like grace." She smiled. Maybe that's what we were both chasing, not success, just quiet grace. They sat in silence, the kind that no longer needed to be filled. The water rippled softly against the dock. Fireflies blinked along the reeds. For the first time in his adult life, Joel Madron didn't want to be anywhere else. As summer turned to fall, the town carried on, slow, imperfect, alive. The mural by the youth center had been restored, stars brighter than before. Nola's tiny initials glimmered in the corner. Every time Joel passed by, he'd stop and smile, not because he saw his reflection, but because he finally didn't need to. He had become what he once chased, not powerful, not untouchable, but present. And in that quiet, ordinary life, Joel Madron finally found what ambition had promised and never delivered: peace, without applause.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you loved this story, you will definitely love the next one. It's more intriguing than you can ever imagine. So go ahead and watch it now. Click on the image on your screen right away to watch the next one. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. It helps and encourages us to share the best human interest stories you'd love.